What's up, nerds? What's up, nerds? Goz Master here with another Magic the Gathering puzzle quest. Today's quest, top 10 cards from March of the Machines. I'm going to be going over a post-mortem review of all the cards I've mastered, because now that I have all of them, I can give you a genuine full playthrough review of what cards you should be chasing. And if you've already pulled these and maybe have overlooked them, a few different ways you can use them to be able to maximize your results with them. That said, before we get into the content, a couple of things we want to do housekeeping-wise. Number one, subscribe to the channel. I am going to be continuing to build out this channel. So 50% of you guys aren't subscribed, and it really hurts my heart. It really empties my bucket. It doesn't fill my soul with positive light and energy, and it would really make a big difference to the channel if we can get those last 140 subs so we can actually get to the monetization of the channel. Second point that I want to bring up here, a little short on the watch time for my videos, and that's just because I have not been putting out content as consistently as I need to. You guys have been great in watching. I appreciate you. I can't thank you enough for your attention, your viewership. It really means a lot to me. It supports the channel. I'd never ask you for any money, not even like a Patreon or anything like that, because if you subscribe, if you like, if you engage, if you comment on the content of the page, that should eventually get me to the point where we're able to generate a little bit of revenue from the account so that we can actually start paying the internet bill with it. One of the focuses I'm going to have going forward is I'm going to start working on kicking out at least 2 videos a week. So if you'd like, subscribe and actually watch the videos, even if you have them playing in the background on mute. That'll be a massive help to the channel to help boost up our engagement and go from there. You know our community is very tiny, so every like and subscribe really makes a big difference for the channel. But most of all, enjoy the content. Let's get into it. So I had somebody in the comment section ask me just the other day in our Discord, which you should be in the Discord, Goz, where's your chase cards for the March of Machine deal? And I'm like, I actually did do a review of the cards, but they released the card set out early a day. I planned on releasing it with anticipation, building up the hype before the next day of it. So I'd actually scheduled the thing and was planning to have it out to you, so it could be a nice little hype video. Alas, they dropped the set early. With that said, some people still wanted to see my thoughts on the cards. And I went through and started editing the video to release to you guys, but to be honest, it just felt fake because it was already past and there was a lot of cards that I wouldn't recommend now. So without further ado, this is my top 10 cards that I do recommend that you pay attention to. Alright, so Jin Cataxius. So I'm actually including Jin as, I think so far, the best of the Praetors, but do not hold that to me. I'm actually going through a video series for you guys where I'm going to create a battle of the Praetors to see which Praetor is best out of the 5. Vorinclex, Elish Norn, Shieldred, Jin Cataxius, and Urabrask. I remembered. So I'm going through those right now. I already know who I like best for my playstyle, but it's forcing me to build out decks that I normally wouldn't, and it's a lot of fun. So the 10th slot here is potentially, right now, Jin Cataxius, but honestly, it could be any of the Praetors right now that are in this slot. The reason why this is so good, because of this ability. Once he flips over, drop the 6 cards. Those cards gain 6 mana. Return all creatures without Phyrexian subtype to their owner's hand. All cards in your hand gain full mana. Return the first card named Jin Cataxius from your exile to the board under your control. So he creates this nice little loop. We'll get into it. He's a lot of fun. But these, all of the Praetors, if you have the right cards to wrap them around, can be a good, solid chase card. All right, number 9, Cracksa Kimora. 18 mana, lifelink, legendary, vigilance, menace, 6/6, 3-colored, Elder Giant Dao. Oh. When this creature enters the battlefield or attacks, destroy the top 2 cards of your library. If there are 6 or more cards in your graveyard, pick one of the first 4 creature cards from your graveyard, return it to the battlefield under your control, then exile the other 5 cards from your graveyard. This effect can trigger only once per turn. When I was mastering cards, I found myself digging for this card to be able to use it to hit the board and to do a little reanimator stuff. You know, I like reanimator. All in all, this is just a solid card. Is it a chase card? It's a really, really, really good card. And if you have a mid collection, or if you're a newer player and you pull this could probably be a staple in your builds until you actually wind up building your card collection more significantly. Zirgo Ojutai. 13 mana, flying, haste, legendary 4/4, 3-color, orc dragon. That's cool. When this creature enters the battlefield, it gains hexproof until end of turn. Kind of silly. When the creature deals combat damage to your opponent's planeswalker, pick one of the first 4 cards from your library. Fetch that card, it gains 8 mana. Very solid. This becomes a standard poor man's Velomachus. At the end of your turn, if you have 5 or less cards in hand, return this creature to its owner's hand. It gains 10 mana. So it only costs 3 more to get out. This is a very fun card. It's a very good, practical, functional card. It helps you dig through your deck. It's a very creative way of avoiding removal. So if you have something that on their turn they're going to be able to take your creature out, he's sitting in hand. I prefer to have him on board and building up, but you just want to make sure that when you're using him, you're not reinforcing him, because when he does come back to hand, you lose the reinforcement. So just keep him one of. But he's a very functional way to help you manage your deck, dig through your library, and he's a very, very good card. All right, next, Archpriest of Shadows. I have not built for this deck or this creature yet, but this is going to be a full build around with her. I think she's really great. 15 mana for a 4/4 human warlock. When this creature enters the battlefield, target creature gets +1/+1. If that target is not this creature, it gains Death Touch until end of turn. When a creature you control with Death Touch deals combat damage to your opponent's planeswalker, pick one of the first 4 non-spell cards from your graveyard, supports or creatures, and move that card into play under your control. This is good with discard decks, with cards that are wind up actually putting things into your library, destroy the top of your library kind of effects. And this puts you in a position where you're able to bring cards, Reanimator, out from the graveyard right in your board, and you go from there. Very exciting. It's a fun card. Juru and Hazoret, 16 mana, creature, human god, 5/4 for white-red. So at the beginning of combat on your turn, if you have 1 or less cards in your hand, this creature gains vigilance and haste until the beginning of your next turn. So you can strategically throw cards out of your hand, exile into exile, in order to get this card down to 1 in hand, so it gets vigilance and haste. Pretty sassy. When this creature attacks, pick one of the first 4 cards from your library. If it's a legendary creature, move that card into play under your control. Move all cards that weren't fetched this way to the bottom of your library. So, in this case, if you're running a legendary creature deck that has alternate effects, like Rocco, for example, you could go get Rocco, put him on the board, fetch another card that gets full mana, if you already have a Rocco on board that has full mana, and allows you to do some shenanigans with it. There's lots of other creatures. Lots of the creatures I featured so far are legendary. There's a lot of building potential with him. The only downside to him is it's when he attacks. Lame. It would be neat if it was entered battlefield, because then that would give us a lot more shenanigans we can run into. But it's still a very solid card. Good, solid body. Not too expensive. Red, white. It's high costing, so you can play it with Calamity. It's a really solid card. All right, now, going forward, that card so far have been really, really good. And that Juru and Hazoret is the absolute peak of what the good cards are. They're all really, really good cards. Going forward, these are going to be cards that are absolute chase cards, and we'll get into it here. Sea Double, 12 mana, blue spell card. At the beginning of your turn, if this card is in your hand, mill 8, this card gains 4 mana. So if your opponent has 4 cards in their graveyard, then it gains 4 mana right off the top, reduces the cost, very powerful. So if you have a card not named Sea Double, this is when you cast it, with full mana in your hand, create a copy of that card in your hand, it gains full mana. Otherwise, create a copy of target creature into your hand, it gains full mana. Okay. So, let's say I have a card with full mana in my hand. Whatever it is, I mute it down, I cast Sea Double, I'm getting a copy of that, it's hitting the board, and I can ultimately play 2 of those. Let's say the card with full mana is something like a high casting cost card, 25 mana or whatever it is. I get that card for 12 mana, essentially. As long as I have that muted in hand, plus the stored mana that's on that card, so I can be able to get it out. It's pretty significant. If I'm in a jam, I need to get some gems converted. I have even something as mundane as Cut Your Losses in full mana. Remember, I can have full mana on that card, cast Sea Double for 12, do 2, Cut Your Losses, nuke the board, get my hand full of mana, and then start cycles that we can go in for loops. On the other side of that, if I'm behind in a game, and I need to get some defense, one of the worst things to see right now is a creature on their side that's got prevent damage, i.e. Faithbound Judge or Phyrexian Vindicator. Oh, dear God, that card is brutal. I can actually take a copy of that from them and put it into my hand and cast it. So not only does it help with casting inside of events for you, it allows you to be able to put some bodies on the board so that you can actually start making a bigger progress on it. I am pretty much auto-including a lot of these in the builds. If I have the room for it. And it's a really, really excellent card. Definitely one worth grabbing and using and having. Breach the Multiverse, absolutely a chase card. 21 mana, black spell card. Destroy the top 10 cards of each player's library. Pick one of the last 4 vanguards or creature cards from your graveyard. Move that card into play under your control. Pick one of the last 4 vanguard or creature cards from your opponent's graveyard. Move that card into your play under your control. Each creature you control gains a Phyrexian subtype. Jin Cataxius, I was showing just a minute ago. One of the things that happens is, if you use this card, you bring one of their creatures out, let's say Faithbound Judge. It gets a Phyrexian subtype. Jin Cataxius' second ability is returns all creatures to hand that don't have the Phyrexian subtype. So that would make it immune to that return to hands ability, so there's some synergy between this and that card. This is a really good card. Yes, it's a little expensive, but there's so many different ways to cheat out with Cut Your Losses or Mox Jet that you can just get this thing out for free or at a discount. Great card, a lot of fun. I try to play it as much as I can. All right, next. One of the highest ranking dual rare cards, Galvanmaverens. 25 mana for a legendary trample 12/12 white green dinosaur vampire. Dear Lord, what are we doing? When this creature attacks, you may create X vampire tokens. X is the number of creatures you control, including the reinforcements. So if he's by himself, he hits the board, he gets one creature that's on the board. He gets one more vampire. Now, including the reinforcements. If you don't, your first creature gets +Y against trample. Y is the greatest power among other creatures you control. So I see a lot of people trying to use this early game. The strategy is he hits the board, they hit the board, and you just create the vampire token. And that creates 2 creatures. Then you do the vampire token again on the next turn. Now you have 3 creatures. And again, now you have, etc., etc. It starts to scale from there, and it exponentially starts to improve. But if you already do have a board presence, and this guy somehow hits the board later, then you say no, you don't take that. You give him the +Y, and it's your first creature. It's not even him. So if he's not the creature in first position, they hit the board in second or third position, and you have a creature that can swing for dome right now, that creature gets all of his power onto them. This is and it's permanent. The YY, the ++ and trample is permanent. It's not till the end of turn. That makes this card absolutely broken and bonkers. It's so much fun to play with. If you're playing a creature deck with Quatli 2, Radiant Champion, and you're using this, it just escalates and goes kind of crazy. So you can start to draw, give those cards mana, and get more Galvanmaverens on the board. So if you've pulled it and haven't played with this, oh my gosh, this creature is a lot of fun. Plus, it's got big bodies and trample. Definitely want to get this creature into first position so it gets all of the bonuses from it, but it's solid. This card right now, if you're sleeping on City on Fire, I was commenting in the Discord quite a bit about how excited I was about this card. There were a lot of folks saying it's too expensive, it's too expensive, it's too expensive. 20 mana, but it's a discount for 6 because of Convoke. So you have creatures on the board, which you should. Just pair this with Ovika. Just put Ovika on the board. Support card enchantment. When a creature you control deals combat damage to your opponent's planeswalker, deal X damage to your opponent's planeswalker. When a creature you control deals combat damage to a creature, deal X damage to that creature. When a spell you control deals damage to a target, deal X damage to that target. So that's not limited, right? Attacking I can only do once. So if I attack a planeswalker or a creature, I can only do it once per creature. But the other one, the spell that does damage, I can do that as many times. So if I create a loop that does like micro damage or whatever it is, that would repeat. When another support or creature you control deals non-combat damage to any target for the first time, see how that's limited? During your turn, deal X damage to that target. X is the number of creatures you control, including the reinforcements. Go create a loop deck with Ovika, have this on the board, game, GG. Not only will the spells and the things you're doing power up the Ovika goblin tokens, but in addition to that, if they are doing damage, they're doing all of the token number of damage to the creature or to your opponent in addition to that. And then when you swing for your final swing, because that creature has haste, he's swinging for its body plus double all of the reinforcements that it has. It's a stupid powerful card. Very good. I'm going to be spotlighting a really crazy build here very soon. All right, next. Ob Nixilis Captive Kingpin. You know I love me some loopy loops, and Ob Nixilis does definitely do the job. Him with Quaza. When your opponent loses life, if they lose 3 or less life, this creature gets +2/+2 to draw a card. If that card is a spell card, it gains full mana and gains outcast whatever we cast on all the spells. He only costs 10. Legendary Flying Trample 4/3, and he's black and red. Fun card, absolutely a chase card. He is as broken as I anticipated he would be. A lot of fun, and with Quaza, they pair very, very nicely. So definitely chase card. Master. Inside of the premium elite packs, you definitely want to make sure you get a copy of him. And finally, the number 1 slot, the number 1 chase card in the set is Urabrask. Oh my goodness. 12 mana, legendary, first strike, level 4/4 red Phyrexian Praetor. I already talked about the Praetors, but you can guess who the number 1 Praetor, in my opinion, is. When you cast a spell card, deal 2 damage to your opponent's planeswalker, gain 4 mana, increase this card's level by 1. Right? So a lot of people were kind of down on this thinking, well, it can create a loop deck, but I don't want to sit there and ping somebody to death with the 2 mana. That ain't it, homie. It's the 4 mana that you're gaining. At the beginning of your turn, if this card's level is 3 or less, this card's level becomes 1. Otherwise, this card creates the Great Work token. I don't need the flip side. I don't need anything from this card other than the 4 mana that it gains. And then I put this in a loop deck with Ovika and a couple other things, which I'll be doing a full deck build for this, but this card is absolutely bonkers good. between him and Ob, you have a couple of really fun things. I thought I'd be able to pair them together, but they actually work better in separate deck builds. They have separate focuses, so you have two engines instead of just one really broken one, but it is a lot of fun. With that said, those are my top 10 chase cards out of the set right now. Who are you going after? What cards have I not listed here that you think are absolutely bonkers? I would love to hear it in the comments below. And as always, my friends, join us in the Discord. I know that you could be anywhere in the world, just spend this time with me here. It makes a lot of difference, and I'd love to see you inside the Discord so we can actually comment, talk, debate, and get some deck builds. A lot of the ideas that I see in there, some of the best builds that I've seen from folks, or at least starting points for my builds, come from some of the suggestions other people were making inside the Discord. So, as always, till our next quest, my friends, I appreciate you, and swords up.